Hello. Today, following along with the doc.rust-lane.org/book program, we're going to be doing their programming a guessing game application. So, to do that, we want to start a new cargo program. If you guys remember, cargo last time is part of Rust's package manager type program. So, to start a new one, we just type in the word cargo, new, and we're going to just follow along and call it guessing game. And if we take a look at our projects directory now, we'll see that we have our guessing game project in there. So now we can go into that. And you see we have our cargo.toml file and our source file. So let's just take a look real quick and read what's in the cargo.toml file. And you can see we have our version and our edition and the name of the game there. So we don't have anything under dependencies because we haven't added anything yet. So now let's take a look at our source file. We should have a main.rs source file out there. And we do, and if you guys remember from last time we looked at this, if we cat that file, it should have our hello world program in there. And this is by default, it's always going to put that in there. So far so good. And we're just going to go ahead and compile this hello world program and run it in the same step using cargo run. And this is just so you guys can see how this works. So we're going to do cargo run, so it's going to automatically use our source file that we have. There you go, and you see that it actually executed it. Okay, so now that we have that, now we need to go in and we need to change our source file to start our guessing game. So first off, we're going to remove our function main and we're going to create a new one. So we're going to use something new this time. We're going to use standard std ::io, and that's input output. So we're going to bring that into our program. And then we're going to create a new main function. So we want to use fm for function main. Okay. Then our open brackets so that it knows that that's the start of our function. And we're just going to use our print line. If you guys remember, this is our print statement. The exclamation point means that's a macro inside of Rust. So anytime you use that, it knows it's going to use macro code. That's part of Rust there. So since this is a guessing game, we want to start off with guess the number. Okay. And if you guys remember, you need a semicolon at the end of it. There you go. Now, since we're telling them to guess the number, now we need to ask them to input a number. So we're going to do print line again. Okay. Now we're going to start using some variables, and we'll go over variables a little bit later on in our next Rust video. So for now, just kind of follow along. We're going to let mute, and this is for mutatable, not actually mute like can't talk. So this is mutatable, which means that this variable can be changed. So we want to do a guess, which is going to grab this input from the please input your guess there. So we're going to call this variable guess. So let mute guess equal. Okay. And then we want to have a string, which is the type variable that it is. Colon, new. So we're basically, Rust is, we're telling Rust that this is a new variable called guess, and it's going to be a string type new. Okay. Now that we have that, now we need to work on our I/O, which is our input-output function that we have up here. So input-output basically is they're going to input the guess on the command line, and then we're going to output it to the screen. So this is what we're doing here with the input-output. Standard in. Okay. Now we want to read whatever answer they give us. So we're going to use .read underscore line. And now we want to do our guess. So we want to do end mute guess. So we're telling it to get this variable name here from this. Okay. Now we want to do expect because we expect the string to come back. And if we don't get it, we need to have a message that says failed to read. So we'll just put that in here. Oops, gotta end that with our quotes. All right. So if you notice here, what we have is we have our input-output standard. Then we have a .read line, and if you notice, there's no semicolon after this because this is all one line. We could actually print this out as on one line, but it's easier to read if we print it out here on two. So that's why we don't have a semicolon after this immutable guess. Okay. So once we have that, now we actually want to print out what the user put in. And let's put an extra space in here so that it's a little easier to read. Okay. And now we're going to put you guessed. And this is coming back as a string here. Now we need to call out the variable from the read line here. So if you remember, guess is our name of our variable. And we assigned the value from the read line. So now we need to call that up. So we're going to do that by putting it inside an open bracket, close bracket. Close that out. And we're almost done. Last thing we need to do for this is we need to go ahead and close out our function. So now we're closing out our main function here. All right. So let's go ahead and write this file. And now we're going to see how this works. So to test the very first part of our program, we're going to use cargo run. And you notice that we found here, there's an error message. Now there's a couple ways that we can handle this. It's telling us which line and where it found the actual error message at. So if we go back and we look at our code, we'll take a look and see if we can find where the actual error message is. So this looks good here. Print line, please input your number. Please input your guess. That looks good, that looks good. Let mute guess equals string, colon, new, semicolon, that looks good. IO standard in, that looks good. Read line, that looks good. Expect mute guess. That looks good. Print line you guessed. Everything looks good, so let's look back at our error messages. Yes, you missed. Oh, it's telling us our very first line we forgot to add our semicolon. It's actually telling us right on the screen here. So we need to go back up to the top line here. And we're just going to add this here. Okay. Now we'll try our cargo run again and see what happens. Okay, so this time it actually worked. So let's just